is now heading towards the mountains. Then why? Stay tuned. Airbus Aviation. An Airbus is dropping. But it isn't actually dropping. It's just cruising nicely on autopilot. Or is it? The captain leaves the cockpit. The first officer locks the door. Then, he's looking around. Then he looks at the altitude selector, moves it down to its lowest selectable of 100 feet, and pulls the altitude selector out. The aircraft enters open descent, and this begins the disaster. The plane's nose begins pitching down. The plane begins sinking. Now, all that's left is the plane. The captain notices the pitch down. He is pretty surprised. How could the plane be pitching down in the cruise? To figure that out, the captain needed to get back into the cockpit. So once he was done with his break, he decided to get back into the cockpit. But when he put in the code, this happened. The door did not open. The first officer had locked the door. The captain kept trying to get in. Meanwhile, the plane was dropping at 4,500 feet a minute. As it continued dropping, so did the captain lose trust in the door opening. Called out, "Open the damn door!" But the first officer did not even respond. The plane continued sinking. Its flight level was way too low, below the elevation of the Alps. The plane was flying above the Alps, so you can already see what's starting to happen. But you still don't know the full story, so yeah. The plane continued to descend. As it descended, so did their airspeed go up, meaning that the plane descended faster at open descent. It continued descending, and descending, and descending, and descending, still calling, "Open the damn door!" with nothing. The plane continued dropping, but of course, it didn't pitch up anytime soon. It just continued falling at 1,400 a minute. The plane itself now begins getting worried, but there's still plenty above the French Alps. So the plane itself wasn't really worried enough to start giving up terrain warnings. But you may know that's not for a moment. As the plane continued in its descent, heading now. Let's skip forward a bit, since all that's happened during this time is the plane continued descending around. Now, there was nothing stopping the first officer. As the autopilot continued flying towards the ground, and the airspeed was trying to go up to 350 knots, so did the plane drop. It began dropping, but barely. The captain continued shouting, "Open the damn door!" while the aircraft continued descending. It was descending so fast that it was effectively minutes until they would slam into the Alps. The plane continued, and just continued. It never stopped. It continued to descend, and descend, and descend, and descend. It just continuously descended. The plane was even getting more worried, but it still didn't give any terrain warnings. Since there was still plenty on, the plane still was getting worried about the rate, so it called out "Sink rate" only once. But it was still not even in the considerable, where the descent was just slow enough the captain could get back into the cockpit. Then the captain saw it, an emergency axe The flight attendant was watching. The captain grabbed the axe and began trying to open the door. But nothing. Then, absolutely nothing. The plane just continued descending with 5 degrees. And I think 20 degrees could cause 6,000 feet a minute. How could 5 degrees be that severe? Well, if you watched their airspeed tape, you would clearly see that the plane was heading fast. Remember what happens to a plane when it's going down and fast? It's down, right? Even if the nose like barely heading down isn't gonna stay the same. It's gonna start increasing. Like a rocket ship. If the plane keeps going fast, so will its rate go fast. Also, this applies same with climb, but the climb rate really goes up. Why am I explaining this? The plane was now descending through 20,000 feet when the first officer pulled power back to idle. This was maintained for such a short amount of time that it wasn't even catched on the recording. The speed brakes were also put out for half a millisecond, so they didn't even extend. They just tried to extend, but then were given the command to go back up before they even lifted. The plane just continued. Nothing was going to stop it. And this action of speed brakes was probably an action to make the plane descend even faster. Alright, it's still starting 4,000 feet a minute. Probably exceeding 5,000, but 2,800. The plane was still just dropping. It's already obvious that the captain was not getting in anytime soon. He should continue calling the same things out. Nothing. Then the captain saw what he needed, an emergency code. He quickly put in the emergency code, and then that happened. A red light flashed on the keypad. The captain knew it. The only way the emergency code could fail was that the first officer had locked the door manually, which he had. As the plane descended through 17,000 feet, it even got more worried. So it called out another sink rate. Again, it just continued flying down. Obviously, the first officer wanted it. Well, there's gonna be an investigation video that's gonna be tomorrow on my channel. Because this video is not gonna cover like the investigation and stuff. Why would I cover that in a video that's meant to just show the event? Now, then 50,400, 300. It was effectively dropping. Again, the first officer pulled the knob. He had selected a vertical speed temporarily, but now he pulled it back out again. Open descent equals more descent, of course, at this high speed. The plane maintained 2,700 feet per minute before it dropped to 2,600. The first officer made small inputs on his side stick, but out of the range to disconnect the autopilot, so it did absolutely nothing to the plane's flight path. It continued to drop and drop and drop. The captain was getting a bit hopeless. He had been slamming the axe for about 15 minutes, and the plane was not even leveling out. If it leveled out, the captain could have been a bit calmer. But now it was getting extremely close to the Alps. Now, this was getting a bit serious. The plane's autopilot was meant to keep an altitude, and it was not keeping it. The captain said, "Are we still at 30,000 feet?" Probably in his mind, because the aircraft was probably not at 30,000 feet, which it probably didn't even skim 30,000 feet for like 10 minutes. Obviously, it took about 16 minutes to crash, but no, ask me why this video is only 14 minutes long. Because because of my recreation that took me 14 minutes. Anyway, the plane continued descending and descending and descending and descending. With just nothing stopping it, except if the overspeed protection had activated and pulled the nose up violently, disconnecting the autopilot, but that never happened. So the plane just continued going down. 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 There was nothing stopping it. Of course, the Airbus protections, but those were not nearly in the range that they would be concerned. The plane began getting very concerned. The pilots, which were not doing something that's elite, but there were not even two pilots in the cockpit. The captain was still fighting. And the first officer was just sitting, making the plane descend intentionally so he would crash it into the mountains. So as the plane continued, so did the captain fight more with the door. So did the aircraft descend more. It continued in an absolute it just went down. It was never going to stop. The plane continued then. It continued to descend. As the German wings flight descended, it descended, and then it descended even more. The plane dropped through 7,000 feet. Now, it had no choice. It began calling obstacle ahead, pull up. Followed 8 seconds later by obstacle ahead, pull up. Followed 8 seconds later by terrain ahead, pull up. This plane was now really just falling from the sky. It dropped through 5,000 feet, 5,800, 5,700. The plane even got more concerned, so it began calling out, obstacle ahead, pull up, obstacle ahead, pull up. Simultaneously for the next 60 seconds of this flight. Obstacle ahead, pull up, before the system just calmed at first. But then the plane got closer to the Alps, and the ground proximity warning system now couldn't just give up. So it began calling obstacle ahead, pull up, terrain ahead, pull up, for the remainder of this flight. Terrain ahead, pull up, terrain ahead. The plane continued to descend. It just descended endlessly. Of course, it has finished descending. That's another story. Anyway, the plane continued to just drop. Nothing left. Obstacle ahead, pull up, obstacle ahead, pull up, obstacle ahead. Sorry about being in the middle of the ocean. Just don't have proper scenery installed for Aerofly, but that's another story. Obstacle ahead, pull up. The plane continued calling exactly this out, as now it really began getting serious. The vertical speed indicator on both sides went yellow. This meant that the plane was descending too fast for the altitude. It now passed 1,500, 1,400, 1,300, 1,200. The captain was now getting very desperate. But anyway, he wouldn't be able to save the plane by now, as the plane passed 900, 800, 700, 600, 500. The plane now began calling out, too low, gear, since the landing gear wasn't there. As it called, too low, gear, and the master warning light lit up. Of course, there was nobody to respond to it, except the first officer who just wanted to crash the plane. So why would he respond to a terrain warning? The plane almost leveled at 100 feet, right? No? Before it could even reach that altitude. Yeah, before it could even reach that altitude, it was at 7,806 feet. It happened. It crashed. It just crashed. But the Airbus continued landing for a couple of seconds in the air before it just crashed. Bye, guys. Bye. I don't know how to end the outro. Bye.